He was a man of logic and schedules, until one look from her made him forget how to breathe and suddenly nothing else mattered. Ethan had always been the kind of person who lived by plans. His days were organized down to the minute. Wake up at 6, morning run, shower, breakfast, classes, library time, dinner, study, sleep. Repeat. His friends used to joke that he was more robot than human, but that's just how he functioned. Structure made sense. Emotions didn't. Feelings were messy, unpredictable, and Ethan preferred things he could control. It was a Tuesday afternoon in October when everything changed. The library was packed with students, all cramming for midterms. Ethan was on a mission. He needed a specific engineering reference book for his graduate project, and he was already running 10 minutes behind schedule. That alone was bothering him more than it should have. He walked quickly through the narrow aisles, scanning the shelf numbers. Section 620, 621, 622. His eyes were fixed on the spines of the books above him. He didn't see the corner coming. More importantly, he didn't see her coming. The collision wasn't dramatic. No big crash, no loud noise. Just a solid bump of shoulders. But it was enough to send the tall stack of books she was carrying flying in every direction. Poetry books. At least 7 or 8 of them scattered across the floor like fallen dominoes. Ethan's first instinct was to apologize. He opened his mouth, ready to say sorry, help gather the books, and move on with his day. But then she looked up. Maya was crouched on the floor, pushing her dark hair back from her face. When their eyes met, something happened that Ethan couldn't explain. His mind, which was always full of calculations and schedules and logical thoughts, just went completely blank. His heart started beating faster. His palms felt sweaty, and for several long seconds he forgot how to form words. She had these warm brown eyes that seemed to smile even before her lips did. There was a small annoyed crease between her eyebrows, but her mouth was curving into something between frustration and amusement. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. "Hey, you okay?" Maya asked, her voice pulling him back to reality. "You look like you just saw a ghost or something." Ethan blinked. Once, twice. "Get it together," he told himself. I'm sorry. "I'm so sorry. I wasn't looking where I was going." He dropped to his knees and started grabbing books. His hands were shaking slightly, which annoyed him. Why was he shaking? It was just a person. Just a girl. Just someone he'd accidentally bumped into. Except his body seemed to have a different opinion about what was happening. "It's fine," Maya said, laughing a little. "I was carrying way too many anyway. My professor always tells me I check out more books than I can read in a semester." Ethan picked up a collection of Pablo Neruda's poetry and handed it to her. Their fingers brushed for just a second and he felt a jolt run up his arm. He pulled back quickly, grabbing another book. "You're a literature student?" he asked, trying to sound normal. "Creative writing, actually. But yeah, I basically live in the literature section." She stacked the books in her arms more carefully this time. "You're engineering, right? I've seen you around. You're always in the back corner with those huge textbooks that look like they could kill someone." She'd noticed him. Ethan felt something flip in his chest. "Yeah, graduate program. Structural engineering. That sounds incredibly complicated." "It is," Ethan said. Then, because his brain decided to stop working properly, he added, "Poetry seems complicated too. All those metaphors and hidden meanings." Maya laughed, and the sound made him feel like he'd won something. "It's really not that deep sometimes. Sometimes a river is just a river, you know?" They stood up at the same time. Ethan was holding the last book, something by Rumi. He handed it to her and she smiled at him again. That smile. He was going to remember that smile for a very long time. "I'm Maya, by the way." "Ethan." "Well, Ethan, try not to run into any more people today." She adjusted her stack of books. "These poetry collections are surprisingly heavy." "I'll watch where I'm going," he said. Then, desperate to keep her there for even another minute, he asked, "Do you need help carrying those?" Maya glanced at her watch and winced. "I'd love that, but I have class in like 5 minutes across campus. I really have to run." She started backing away, still facing him. "But I'm here most evenings. Maybe I'll see you around?" "Yeah," Ethan said, though it came out quieter than he intended. "Maybe." And then she was gone, disappearing around the corner with her armful of poetry books. Ethan stood there in the middle of the aisle, completely forgetting why he'd come to the library in the first place. Students walked past him. Someone asked him to move so they could reach a shelf. He barely noticed what just happened. He'd talked to plenty of girls before. He had female friends in his program. He'd even dated someone briefly in his undergraduate years. But this feeling, this complete short circuit of his brain, this was new. This was different. Ethan pulled out his phone and looked at his schedule. He was supposed to be finding that reference book, then heading to his study group, then going to the gym. His whole afternoon was planned out. But suddenly, none of it seemed important. He walked to the back corner where he usually studied and sat down at his regular table. His engineering textbook was still there from earlier, marked with sticky notes and highlighters. He opened his laptop, stared at the screen, and realized he couldn't remember what he was supposed to be working on. All he could think about was the way Maya had looked at him, the way she'd laughed, the way she'd said, "Maybe I'll see you around," like it was both a question and a promise. His roommate David called him later that evening. "Dude, where are you?" "Study group started 20 minutes ago." Ethan looked around the library. He'd been sitting at his table for over an hour and he'd barely written a single word. "Sorry, I got caught up with something." "I'll be there in 10, but he didn't leave. He stayed in that library until it closed, telling himself he was studying but really just replaying those few minutes over and over in his mind. Every detail. The books falling. Her eyes, her voice. The way his entire carefully organized world had tilted sideways in the span of a single conversation. When he finally walked back to his apartment that night, David took one look at him and started laughing. "What happened to you? You look weird." "Nothing happened," Ethan said. "Something definitely happened. You missed study group. You never miss study group. You never miss anything." Ethan dropped his bag on the couch and ran a hand through his hair. "I just bumped into someone at the library, literally knocked her books everywhere. And nothing. We talked for like 2 minutes. That's it." David crossed his arms, grinning. "But you're thinking about her." Ethan wanted to deny it. He wanted to say it was nothing, just a random interaction that didn't mean anything. But he'd never been good at lying, especially to his best friend. "Yeah," he admitted quietly. "I can't stop thinking about her." That night, Ethan lay in bed staring at the ceiling. His mind was racing, which was unusual for him. Normally, he fell asleep within minutes, his thoughts organized and filed away neatly. But tonight, everything was chaos. He kept seeing Maya's face, hearing her laugh, feeling that strange, breathless feeling that had hit him when their eyes met. This wasn't logical. He didn't know her. They'd talked for maybe 3 minutes total. He didn't even know her last name or what year she was in or anything real about her. But somehow in those 3 minutes something had shifted inside him. Something he didn't quite understand and definitely couldn't control. And that scared him more than he wanted to admit. The next 3 weeks were the strangest of Ethan's life. He became someone he didn't recognize. Someone who rearranged his entire schedule around the possibility of seeing a girl he barely knew. Someone who found excuses to walk past the literature section. Someone who showed up at the library 30 minutes earlier than usual, just in case. It started small. The day after their first meeting, Ethan went to the library at his normal time, 6 in the evening. He told himself it was routine. He always studied at 6. It had nothing to do with Maya mentioning she was usually there in the evenings. Nothing at all. He sat at his usual table in the back corner, but he couldn't concentrate. His eyes kept drifting toward the entrance. Every time someone walked in, his heart jumped a little. After 2 hours of pretending to read the same page of his textbook, he packed up and left, feeling ridiculous. The next day, he came back. And the day after that. By the end of the first week, he'd seen her 3 times. Just glimpses. Once she was at a table near the windows, surrounded by notebooks and colored pens. Another time she was in the poetry section, standing on her toes to reach a book on the top shelf. And once she walked right past his table, so close he could smell her perfume, something light and floral that made his concentration disappear completely. Each time, he wanted to say something. Walk over, start a conversation, but he couldn't. His mouth would go dry, his mind would blank, and by the time he built up the courage, she'd be gone. David noticed immediately. "You're acting weird lately," he said one night while they were making dinner. "Like weirder than usual?" "I'm fine," Ethan replied, stirring pasta without really paying attention. "You've reorganized your schedule like 4 times this month." "You love your schedule. You've had the same routine for 2 years. I just wanted to switch things up." David leaned against the counter, studying him. "This is about that girl, isn't it? The one from the library?" Ethan didn't answer, which was answer enough. Have you even talked to her since that day? Not really, just hi when we pass each other. So let me get this straight. You've been stalking the library for 3 weeks hoping to run into her, but when you do see her you just say hi? I'm not stalking, Ethan said defensively. I'm just studying. At the library, where I always study. At different times than you used to. In different sections than you used to. Ethan didn't have a response to that, because David was right. He'd moved his study spot twice, both times to tables with better views of the areas where Maya usually worked. He'd started taking breaks to browse the poetry section, despite having zero interest in poetry. He'd even checked out a book of sonnets once, just to have an excuse to walk past her table. This wasn't like him at all. Ethan Carter didn't do spontaneous. He didn't do irrational. He especially didn't do obsessive. But here he was, completely obsessed with someone he'd talked to for 3 minutes. The worst part was the not knowing. Did she think about him? Did she notice when he was there? Or was he just another random guy she'd bumped into once and forgotten about? His work was starting to slip. His graduate advisor had commented that his latest project proposal seemed rushed and unfocused. His study group had started meeting without him because he kept rescheduling. And last night he'd spent 2 hours staring at a problem set without solving a single equation. Then, on a Thursday evening in early November, something changed. Ethan was at his usual table, actually managing to focus on his work for once when someone sat down across from him. He looked up, expecting it to be someone asking if the seat was taken. It was Maya. Hey, she said, pulling out her laptop. All the other tables are full. Mind if I sit here? Ethan's brain stuttered. No, I mean yes. I mean no, I don't mind. You can sit? She smiled that smile that made his heart do strange things. Thanks, I promise I'll be quiet. I just need to edit this essay. For the next hour they sat in silence. Maya typed away on her laptop, occasionally pausing to sip from her coffee cup. Ethan pretended to work on his structural analysis homework, but mostly he was hyper-aware of every small movement she made. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear. The way she bit her lip when she was thinking. The way her fingers flew across the keyboard. This was torture. The good kind, but still torture. Then his pen rolled off the table. They both reached for it at the same time. Their hands met on the floor, both grasping the pen. Maya looked up at him, and they were suddenly very close. Both crouched down beside the table. Got it, she said softly. But she didn't let go immediately. Neither did he. They straightened up at the same time, and Maya handed him the pen. You're left-handed? Yeah, me too. Well, both actually. I'm ambidextrous. That's cool, Ethan said, and immediately felt stupid for such a boring response. But Maya didn't seem to mind. It's useful for creative writing. When my right hand gets tired, I switch. People think I'm showing off, but really I'm just lazy. Ethan laughed, surprising himself. That's not lazy. That's efficient, says the engineering student. I bet you have systems for everything. Maybe, he admitted. See, I'm the opposite. Total chaos. My notebooks are a disaster. My files are organized by vibes instead of dates. By vibes? Yeah, like this folder is sad autumn poems and this one is angry summer stories. My professor hates it. They talked for another 20 minutes. Small things, classes, coffee preferences. The weird guy who always fell asleep in the third-floor reading room and snored loud enough to echo through the whole library. It felt easy in a way Ethan hadn't expected. Natural. But then Maya's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression shifted slightly. I have to go, she said, starting to pack up her things. My boyfriend is picking me up. Boyfriend, the word hit Ethan like cold water. Of course she had a boyfriend. Why wouldn't she? She was smart and funny and beautiful and everything. Of course someone else had already figured that out. Oh, he said, trying to keep his voice normal. Yeah, no problem. Maya slung her bag over her shoulder. Same time tomorrow? If you don't mind sharing the table again? Sure, Ethan managed. See you tomorrow. He watched her leave and something inside his chest felt heavy. He'd been building this up in his head for 3 weeks. Creating scenarios, imagining conversations, maybe even imagining more than that. And in one sentence, it all came crashing down. She had a boyfriend. That night, David found him sitting on their apartment balcony, staring at nothing. You okay? She has a boyfriend, Ethan said flatly. David sat down beside him. The library girl? Maya, her name is Maya. Did she tell you about him? Just mentioned it casually, like it was no big deal. Maybe it isn't. Maybe they're not. Serious? Or maybe I've been wasting 3 weeks obsessing over someone who's already taken. David was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "So what are you going to do?" Ethan thought about it. The logical thing would be to back off. Stop rearranging his schedule. Stop hoping for something that was never going to happen. Go back to his normal routine and forget about the girl with the warm brown eyes and the smile that made him forget how to breathe. But apparently, logic had left the building 3 weeks ago. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I really don't know." November brought rain. Cold, persistent rain that turned the campus into a gray watercolor painting. Ethan still went to the library every evening, though now he told himself it was just routine. Just studying. The fact that Maya was usually there too was just a coincidence. They'd fallen into an easy pattern. She'd sit at his table if it was free. They'd exchange small talk, work in comfortable silence, occasionally share a snack or complain about their workload. To anyone watching, they probably looked like friends. Just two students sharing study space, but Ethan felt every moment like electricity under his skin. He learned things about her in pieces. She volunteered at a children's literacy program on Saturdays. She listened to jazz when she wrote. She was terrible at math but loved puzzles. She wrote poetry sometimes, but mostly fiction. She wanted to teach creative writing someday, maybe at a university, maybe in a small town somewhere quiet. He told her things too, about his father passing away 2 years ago, about almost dropping out of graduate school because he couldn't focus after the funeral, about how engineering was his father's dream before it became his, about how sometimes he felt like he was living someone else's life. Maya listened in a way most people didn't. Really listened. Not just waiting for her turn to talk, but actually hearing him. And when she looked at him with those thoughtful eyes, Ethan felt seen in a way he couldn't quite explain. But she still had a boyfriend. Daniel, his name was. She mentioned him occasionally. Casual references. "Daniel and I saw that movie. Daniel's family does this big Thanksgiving thing." Small reminders that kept Ethan grounded in reality. He tried to move on. He really did. He went on a date with a girl from his study group. Nice person. Pretty. Smart. And Ethan spent the entire dinner thinking about Maya and feeling guilty about it. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Wednesday in mid-November. Ethan had presented his graduate project proposal that afternoon, and it had gone badly. His advisor had asked questions he couldn't answer. His data had holes he hadn't noticed. He'd stammered through explanations that didn't make sense. It was the worst academic performance of his life. He felt defeated, embarrassed. Like maybe he wasn't cut out for this after all. Instead of going to the library, he went to the campus coffee shop. It was nearly empty, just a few students scattered at tables, everyone hunched over laptops. He ordered a black coffee and sat in the corner, staring at nothing. Then the door opened and Maya rushed in, soaking wet. Her hair was plastered to her face, her jacket dripping, her shoes squeaking on the floor. She looked around frantically, spotted an empty table, and practically ran to it. Ethan watched as she pulled out her laptop, pressed the power button, and then slumped forward when nothing happened. From across the room, he heard her quiet, "No, no, no, please no." Before he could overthink it, he stood up and walked over. "Maya?" She looked up and he saw tears in her eyes. "My laptop died. I have an essay due at midnight and my laptop just died. And I don't have time to go home and get my charger. And the library is closed for maintenance today. And I'm going to fail this class." "Use mine," Ethan said, already pulling his laptop out of his bag. "What? No, I can't." "Yes, you can. I'm not doing anything important tonight." He set his laptop in front of her and logged out of his account. "What's your essay about?" Maya stared at him for a moment, and then something in her expression cracked. "I don't even know anymore. Symbolism in modern poetry. 3,000 words. I'm at 2,000 and everything I write sounds terrible." "I'm sure it's not terrible. You haven't read my writing. I've listened to you talk about books. I bet your essays are great." She laughed, but it was shaky. "You're being way too nice to me right now. You let me share your table for 3 weeks. I'm just returning the favor." Maya wiped her eyes and nodded. "Okay, thank you, seriously. You're saving my life right now." Ethan sat down across from her. "Do you want me to leave you alone to work, or—" "Stay," she said quickly. "If that's okay. I write better when someone else is around. It keeps me accountable, so he stayed. He ordered them both hot chocolate. Maya typed frantically, occasionally muttering to herself. Once in a while, she'd read a sentence out loud and ask if it made sense. Ethan, who knew nothing about poetry, did his best to be helpful. 2 hours passed. The coffee shop was getting ready to close. Maya finally hit save and closed the laptop. Done, submitted, with 12 minutes to spare. See? You made it. Because of you. She looked at him across the table, really looked at him. Why are you always helping me? The books that first day, the table at the library, tonight. You barely know me. Ethan should have said something casual, something safe. But maybe it was the exhaustion from his terrible day, or the intimacy of the quiet coffee shop, or the way she was looking at him. Whatever the reason, he told the truth. Because you're easy to help. What does that mean? It mean, he struggled to find the right words. When I'm around you, I don't have to think so hard about everything. My brain just quiets down, and that's rare for me. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Outside, rain pattered against the windows. The barista started stacking chairs on tables. I'm having problems with Daniel, she said suddenly. Ethan's heart jumped. Oh? We've been together for almost 2 years. Since sophomore year. And it's comfortable, you know. Easy. We have the same friends. Our families know each other. It makes sense on paper. But I don't feel anything anymore. She twisted her coffee cup in her hands. I look at him and I just feel nothing. Like he could be anyone. And that's terrible, right? He's a good person. He doesn't deserve that. What are you going to do? Maya looked up at him, and there was something vulnerable in her eyes. Something scared. I don't know. Breaking up with him feels huge. Like dismantling my whole life. And for what? Because I'm not happy? Is that enough of a reason? Yes, Ethan said firmly. That's the best reason. Is it though? What if I'm making a mistake? What if I break up with him and then realize I had something good and threw it away? Ethan wanted to tell her she wouldn't regret it. Wanted to tell her she deserved more than comfortable. Wanted to tell her that maybe she was feeling nothing for Daniel because she was feeling something for someone else. For him, but he didn't. Because she needed a friend right now, not a complication. I can't tell you what to do, he said instead, but I know what it's like to stay in something because it's safe. After my dad died, I almost quit graduate school. Everyone told me to stay. Said I was just grieving, that I'd regret leaving, and they were probably right. But you know what? I stayed because I was scared, not because I wanted to, and that's not a good enough reason to stay in anything. Maya nodded slowly. You're right. You're completely right. The barista cleared his throat. Sorry guys, we're closing. They gathered their things and walked outside. The rain had stopped, leaving everything wet and gleaming under the streetlights. Ethan offered to walk Maya back to her dorm. They walked slowly, neither of them wanting the night to end. At one point, their hands brushed and Ethan felt that familiar jolt. But this time, Maya didn't pull away immediately. Their fingers touched for several steps before she finally moved her hand to adjust her bag. At her dorm entrance, Maya turned to face him. Thank you. For tonight. For listening. For the laptop. For everything. Anytime. I mean it. She stepped closer, and Ethan's breath caught. You make me feel like I can breathe. Does that sound crazy? No, he said quietly. It doesn't sound crazy at all. For a moment, they just stood there. So close, her eyes searching his face. His heart beating so loud he was sure she could hear it. Then Maya stepped back. I should go. I need to figure some things out. Okay. But I'll see you at the library? I'll be there. She smiled, sad and sweet. And then she was gone, disappearing through the doors. Ethan walked home in a daze. His phone buzzed. David texting, where are you? You okay? He typed back, yeah, I think something just changed. He didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed replaying every word, every look, every moment. The way she'd said, you make me feel like I can breathe. The way she'd stood so close. The way her hand had touched his. She was going to break up with Daniel. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but soon. He could feel it. And when she did, what then? Would she want space? Would she look at him differently? Would there be a chance for something more? Ethan had spent his whole life planning everything, controlling every variable. But this was completely out of his control, and terrifyingly, he didn't want to control it. He just wanted to see where it went, even if it scared him. Even if it didn't make sense. Even if his logical brain was screaming that this was a bad idea. For the first time in his life, Ethan Carter was choosing to feel instead of think, and it was absolutely terrifying. Maya didn't come to the library for 2 weeks. Ethan tried not to panic. He told himself she was busy. Finals were approaching. She probably had a lot of work. It didn't mean anything. It definitely didn't mean she was avoiding him, but deep down he knew. Something had shifted that night in the coffee shop. They'd gotten too close, said too much, felt too much, and now Maya was pulling back. Thanksgiving break came. Ethan went home to visit his mother in their small hometown 3 hours away. The house felt emptier than it used to. His father's absence still a tangible thing after 2 years. His mother made too much food, asked too many questions about school, and didn't mention his father once. They'd gotten good at dancing around the grief. On Thanksgiving night, Ethan scrolled through social media. He told himself he wasn't looking for anything specific. But when Maya's account popped up, he stopped. She'd posted photos from her family's Thanksgiving. Big group shots with what looked like aunts, uncles, cousins. And in several photos there was Daniel. Tall, athletic-looking with an easy smile. Maya was next to him, his arm around her shoulders. They looked happy. Like a real couple. Like everything was fine. Ethan set his phone down and stared at the ceiling. Of course, he'd misread everything. That night in the coffee shop, her problems with Daniel, the way she'd looked at him, it had all been in his head. She'd needed a friend to vent to, and he'd turned it into something it wasn't. He felt stupid. Worse than stupid. He felt like he'd been living in a fantasy for 2 months while reality was something completely different. David called him that night. "How's the hometown?" "Quiet," Ethan said. "You sound weird." "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Just thinking about the girl. She's back with her boyfriend. I saw her post. They look happy." David was quiet for a moment. "Maybe it's not what it looks like." "David, she's literally in his arms in the photos." "It's exactly what it looks like." "So what are you going to do?" "Move on, finally. Actually move on this time." "You sure about that?" "I have to. This whole thing has been messing with my head for too long. My grades are slipping. My advisor is concerned. I'm barely sleeping. I need to get back to normal. Normal sounds boring. Normal sounds productive." When break ended and classes resumed, Ethan threw himself into his work. He reorganized his schedule, putting himself back on the rigid routine he'd abandoned months ago. Early mornings at the gym, regular mealtimes, library sessions focused entirely on studying, no distractions. He moved his study spot back to his original table, the one in the far corner with no view of the literature section. He didn't look for Maya. He didn't rearrange his timing to match hers. He actively avoided the poetry section. When he caught himself wondering where she was or what she was doing, he forced his mind back to equations and structural analysis. It should have worked. This was Ethan's specialty. Compartmentalizing, focusing, pushing feelings aside in favor of logic. It had always worked before, but it didn't work this time. Because every time someone walked into the library, his heart jumped, hoping it was her. Every time he saw someone with dark hair, he did a double take. He couldn't read poetry anymore without thinking of her. Couldn't drink coffee without remembering that rainy night. Couldn't study without imagining her sitting across from him. 2 weeks before Christmas, David staged an intervention. "We're going out," he announced, walking into Ethan's room without knocking. "I have work to do." "You always have work to do. Tonight we're going to that bar near campus. The one with the terrible karaoke. You're going to drink a beer, possibly sing something embarrassing, and remember that you're 23 years old and not actually a robot." "I don't want to." "I don't care. You've been moping around this apartment for 3 weeks. It's depressing." "I'm depressed just watching you. We're going out." Ethan let himself be dragged to the bar. It was crowded, loud, exactly the kind of place he normally hated. But David was relentless, buying him drinks, introducing him to people, forcing him to be social. For a few hours, it actually worked. Ethan felt almost normal. He laughed at someone's terrible rendition of a pop song. He talked to a girl from David's economics class who seemed interested in him. He didn't think about Maya once for a whole 20 minutes, then David's phone rang. He stepped outside to take it, leaving Ethan alone at their table. Ethan pulled out his own phone, scrolling mindlessly. There was a message from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Maya. David gave me your number. I hope that's okay. Can we talk?" Ethan stared at the message for a long time. His finger hovered over the reply button. This was his chance to be smart, to protect himself, to not get pulled back into something that had already hurt him. He typed, "When?" The response came immediately. "Now? I'm at the coffee shop near your apartment. The one that's open late." Ethan looked around the bar. David was still outside on his phone. The economics girl was watching him expectantly from across the room. He could stay here. Keep trying to move on. Pretend he never saw the message. But he was already standing up, already grabbing his jacket, already heading for the door. David caught him on the way out. "Where are you going?" Maya texted. "She wants to talk. Tonight? Now?" "Yeah." David looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Go, but Ethan? Be careful, okay? I don't want to see you destroyed by this." "I know." The walk to the coffee shop took 10 minutes. Every step Ethan's mind raced. What did she want to talk about? Was she going to tell him they should stop being friends? Was this goodbye? Or was it something else? He found her at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. She looked different, tired. There were dark circles under her eyes. When she saw him, she stood up so fast she almost knocked over her drink. "You came. You asked me to." They sat down across from each other. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The coffee shop hummed with quiet conversation around them. "I broke up with Daniel," Maya said suddenly. 2 weeks ago. Ethan's heart stopped. "What?" "I tried to stay. After Thanksgiving, I really tried. Told myself it was just cold feet, just stress from school, just anything other than the truth. But I couldn't do it anymore. It wasn't fair to him. It wasn't fair to me. Maya, I know I disappeared. I know I've been avoiding you. And I'm sorry for that. I needed time to figure out what I was feeling." "And what are you feeling?" She looked at him, and there were tears in her eyes. Terrified, confused, like I made a huge mistake. But also relieved, like I can finally breathe properly for the first time in months. Ethan didn't know what to say. All his carefully constructed walls were crumbling. All his logical reasons for staying away were disappearing. "Why did you ask me here tonight?" he asked quietly. Maya took a shaky breath. "Because I've been lying to myself. About why I broke up with Daniel. About why I couldn't stop thinking about someone else. About why every time I tried to write about love, the only face I could see was yours." The world seemed to stop. The coffee shop, the other customers, everything faded away until it was just the two of them. "You're not just a friend to me, Ethan," Maya continued. "You haven't been just a friend for a long time. And that scares me because this feeling, what I feel when I'm around you, it's different from anything I've felt before. It's intense and real and terrifying. With Daniel, everything was comfortable, safe, but with you," she laughed, but it was shaky. "With you, I feel everything. And I don't know if that's good or bad or completely insane." Ethan's hands were shaking. His heart was racing. His logical brain was shouting warnings about rebounds and timing and complications. But for once, he didn't listen to it. "It's not insane," he said. "I've been feeling the same thing since the day I bumped into you in the library. That moment when you looked up at me, I forgot how to breathe, and I've been forgetting ever since." Maya's eyes were wide, tears spilling over. "Really? Really? I've been trying to move on for weeks, telling myself it was hopeless, that you were with someone else, that I needed to be logical about this. But I can't move on from you. What do we do?" Maya whispered. "I just got out of a 2-year relationship. The timing is terrible. I'm a mess right now. This is probably a huge mistake." "Probably," Ethan agreed. "But I don't care." They sat there looking at each other across the table. All the fear, all the uncertainty, all the logical reasons to walk away. But neither of them moved. Then Maya laughed, wiping her eyes. "This is crazy. We're crazy. Completely. I don't want to rush into anything. I need time to figure out who I am outside of a relationship." "Okay. But I also don't want to pretend I don't feel this." "Neither do I. So what do we do?" Ethan reached across the table. Slowly, carefully, he took her hand. Her fingers laced through his, and that familiar jolt ran through him stronger than ever. "We figure it out," he said. "Together. No pressure. No expectations, just honest." Maya nodded, squeezing his hand. "Honest. I can do honest." They sat there until the coffee shop closed, hands linked across the table, talking about everything and nothing, about their fears, their hopes, their complete confusion about what came next. It wasn't a perfect romantic moment. It was messy and complicated and uncertain, but it was real. And for the first time in months, Ethan felt like he could breathe again too. When they finally left, walking out into the cold December night, Maya turned to him. "Same time tomorrow? At the library?" "I'll be there," she smiled. The spring semester started with uncertainty. Ethan and Maya weren't officially dating. They weren't officially anything. They were just two people trying to figure out what they meant to each other, taking it one day at a time. It was harder than either of them expected. Their first official date was on a Friday night in January. Ethan picked an Italian restaurant, made a reservation, wore his nicest shirt. He wanted everything to be perfect. Instead, he was so nervous he knocked over a water glass within 5 minutes of sitting down. The entire tablecloth was soaked. Maya laughed so hard she snorted, which made Ethan laugh, and they spent the rest of the dinner making jokes about his coordination. "This is going great," Ethan said sarcastically as the waiter brought extra napkins. "This is perfect," Maya corrected, still grinning. "I was so nervous I could barely eat. But now I just feel normal, like we're us again." And that was the thing. When they stopped trying to make moments perfect and just let themselves be, everything felt right. But there were difficult moments too. Maya was still processing her breakup with Daniel. Sometimes she'd go quiet, lost in thought, and Ethan didn't know if he should ask or give her space. Sometimes she'd mention memories with Daniel, then catch herself and apologize. Sometimes she'd cry for reasons she couldn't explain. "I don't miss him," she told Ethan one night while they were studying together. "But I miss knowing what to expect." "Does that make sense?" "Yeah," Ethan said. "Change is scary. Even good change." They had their first real fight in February. Maya got frustrated because Ethan kept planning everything. Every date, every study session, every moment mapped out with typical Ethan precision. She felt like they were on a schedule instead of in a relationship. "I need spontaneity," she said. "I need to feel like we're living, not executing a plan." "I like plans," Ethan shot back. "Plans make sense. Plans keep things from falling apart. But we're not a project, Ethan. We're people. Messy, unpredictable people." They didn't talk for 2 days. It was the worst 2 days of Ethan's semester. He couldn't focus on work. He replayed the fight in his head constantly, trying to figure out where it went wrong. Finally, David knocked on his door. "Dude, just go talk to her. This is ridiculous. What if she doesn't want to talk to me? Then you'll know. But sitting here being miserable isn't solving anything." Ethan showed up at Maya's dorm without warning. When she opened the door, her eyes were red from crying. "I'm sorry," they both said at the same time. They ended up sitting on her floor, talking it through, really talking, about how Ethan's need for control came from losing his father, from feeling like everything could fall apart at any moment. About how Maya's need for spontaneity came from years of feeling trapped in a relationship that was all routine and no passion. "I don't want to make you feel controlled," Ethan said, "but I'm not good at chaos." "And I don't want to make you feel unstable," Maya replied, "but I need some unpredictability in my life." "So we compromise?" "We compromise." After that, things got easier. Ethan learned to let go of his rigid schedules sometimes. Maya learned that some structure wasn't a bad thing. They found their balance. In March, Maya invited Ethan to one of her poetry readings. She'd been nervous about it all week, rewriting her piece a dozen times. Ethan sat in the back of the small campus venue, watching her stand at the microphone under a single spotlight. She read a poem about breathing, about forgetting and remembering, about collision and connection, and Ethan knew, sitting there listening to her words, that the poem was about him, about them. When she finished, their eyes met across the room. She smiled, and he felt his chest tighten in that familiar way. After the reading, people crowded around Maya, congratulating her. Ethan waited patiently, watching her light up as she talked about her writing. When the crowd finally dispersed, she came over to him. "So?" she asked nervously. "What did you think?" "I think you're brilliant," he said honestly. "I think I'm lucky you bumped into me in that library." "You bumped into me." "Details." She laughed and took his hand. "Want to get out of here?" They walked around campus in the cool spring night. Maya talked about her future plans, about possibly teaching, about maybe trying to publish some of her work. Ethan talked about his graduate project, about job opportunities, about not being sure where he'd end up. That's kind of scary, Maya said. Not knowing where you'll be. Yeah, Ethan agreed. Then gathering his courage. But I got a job offer. In California. Good company, great opportunity. Maya stopped walking. California? That's across the country. I know. When do you have to decide? End of the month. They stood under a streetlight, the silence heavy between them. Ethan could see the fear in Maya's eyes. The same fear he'd been feeling since he got the offer. Are you going to take it? She asked quietly. I don't know. It's the logical choice. Career-wise, it's perfect, but it's 3,000 miles away from you. Maya looked down at their joined hands. We've only been together a few months. I can't ask you to give up an opportunity like that for me. You're not asking. I'm choosing. Ethan, no. You can't make decisions like that based on a relationship that's still so new. That's not fair to either of us. Then come with me. The words were out before he could stop them. Maya's head snapped up, her eyes wide. What? Come with me. To California. You could defer grad school for a year. Find a teaching position out there. We could figure it out together. That's insane. I can't just pack up my entire life and move across the country. Why not? Because Maya struggled for words. Because what if we don't work out? What if I move all that way and then we break up and I'm stuck in a place where I don't know anyone? Or, Ethan said carefully, what if we do work out? What if this is exactly what we're supposed to do? Maya pulled her hand away, running it through her hair. I need to think about this. This is huge, Ethan. I can't just decide right now. I know. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have sprung it on you like that. They walked back to Maya's dorm in tense silence. At her door, she turned to him. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying I need time to process this. How much time? I don't know. A few days, a week? I need to think about what I want, not just what makes sense for us. Ethan nodded, even though uncertainty was eating at him. Okay, take the time you need. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. David found him on the balcony at 2 a.m. Did you really ask her to move to California with you? Was that stupid? I don't know, was it? I thought it was romantic. In the moment. Now I think maybe I just scared her off. David sat beside him. Look, I've been watching you two for months now. And yeah, it's been messy. You guys fight, you stress each other out, she makes you crazy. But you know what? You're happier than I've ever seen you. Before Maya, you were just going through the motions. Now you're actually living. What if she says no? Then you decide if you're still taking the job. But at least you'll know where you stand. Maya didn't call for 3 days. 3 agonizing days where Ethan checked his phone constantly, jumped every time it buzzed, and generally drove everyone around him crazy. Then, on a Sunday afternoon, she texted, Meet me at the library? Our table? Ethan's heart was pounding as he walked across campus. This was it. She was either going to say yes or she was going to say no and possibly break up with him entirely. He was prepared for both, or at least he was trying to be prepared. Maya was already at their table when he arrived. She had papers spread out in front of her, covered in her handwriting. I made lists, she said as he sat down. Pros and cons, things I want, things I'm scared of. I know you love lists, so I thought it might help me figure things out. And? Ethan asked, his voice tight. And I realized something. I left Daniel because being with him felt like I couldn't breathe. Like I was trapped in something comfortable but suffocating. She looked up at him. But with you? You don't make it easier to breathe. You make me forget I need to. You make me forget to be scared of taking risks. You make me forget every logical reason why I should play it safe. Is that good or bad? Maya smiled, and there were tears in her eyes. It's terrifying, but I think it's good. So yes, I'll come to California with you. Not because it makes sense. Not because I have a better plan. But because I don't want to spend the next year wondering what would have happened if I'd been brave enough to try. Ethan felt like all the air had rushed back into his lungs. Really? Really? But on one condition. Anything. This isn't me following you. This is us taking a leap together. We're partners in this, okay? Equal decisions. No one giving up their dreams for the other. Deal. They sat there grinning at each other like idiots. Other students in the library were probably wondering what was so exciting. But Ethan didn't care. 6 months later, in the middle of summer, they loaded up a rental truck with all their belongings. Ethan's mother came to help them pack, and she hugged Maya tightly before they left. "Take care of my son," she said. "We're taking care of each other," Maya replied. The drive took 4 days. They argued about music choices, got lost in Nevada, found a weird roadside attraction, and spent an hour taking silly photos. Stayed in cheap motels and ate too much fast food. It was nothing like Ethan had planned, and it was perfect. On their last night on the road, they stopped at a lookout point to watch the sunset. California was just a few hours away now.